Hi, I'm Congresswoman Terri Sewell, and I want to welcome you to a very special Martin Luther King Jr. Day edition of Terri Talks. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a very special guest who has dedicated his life to continuing the legacy of Dr. King and holding our nation accountable to its highest ideals. But before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the significance of this holiday. Each year during Martin Luther King's birthday, our communities join together to celebrate Dr. King's extraordinary life and legacy and renew our fight for the causes that he and so many others marched, fought, and died for. The trail blazed by Dr. King laid the foundation for the progress that we enjoy today and continues to guide us in our fight to root out racism and discrimination wherever they hide. His life gave us a roadmap, and his courage and foresight motivated generations to follow in his footsteps. Growing up in Selma, it was the work of tacticians and strategists like Dr. King who set the tone for my entire life. He and the foot soldiers of the civil rights movement taught us many important lessons, but among the most significant is that progress is elusive, and every generation must fight to preserve the progress of the past and to advance it. The fight for equality is just as critically important today as it was during Dr. King's life. Today, too many Americans continue to confront the same injustices suffered decades ago, from police brutality to gun violence to the never-ending threat against our sacred right to vote. There is still much work left to be done to keep Dr. King's dream alive and to achieve what he called the beloved community. In Congress, I am proud to be doing my part by leading the fight for voting rights as author and lead sponsor of the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Our bill would restore the full protections of the Voting Rights Act and ensure that every American can cast their ballot freely and fairly without barrier or restrictions. Let me be very clear. This bill must pass. Not only will it protect voters of today and tomorrow, but it will ensure that those who marched, died, bled for voting rights did not do so in vain. Though this bill has been repeatedly blocked in the Senate, I am reminded of Dr. King's words. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at moments of challenge and controversy. As the beneficiary of Dr. King's vision and courage, it is up to us to continue his legacy. We are responsible for carrying the torch forward, breaking down barriers and creating opportunities for the next generation. May we use today's celebration to heed his word and to confront injustices head on, to bridge barriers, to strengthen our communities and create solutions by engaging in selfless acts of service. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our very special guest. I can think of no better person to discuss Dr. King's legacy than the man who currently heads up Dr. King's organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. It is my pleasure to introduce a lifelong civil rights leader and activist, president and CEO of SCLC, and I must say a native of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, none other than President Charles Steele Jr. President Steele, thank you so much for being here to share some of your wisdom about how we can continue to keep Dr. King's dream alive.
Thank you.
The history of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference cannot be told without recognizing the influence of Dr. King and how his legacy has influenced that leadership. Can you talk a little bit about how Dr. King's legacy influenced the leadership, even of the SCLC today?
Thank you so much. My Congresswoman, Sewell, from Alabama, and you're from Selma, from Tuscaloosa, and we'll never get away from those two communities as well as Birmingham and throughout the state of Alabama. You know, I used to look down when I visit Detroit or kinfolks and other places, and people would say, where are you from? And I say LA, and I didn't go no further.
Lower Alabama.
Hello. Lower Alabama. And my cousin said, why don't you tell the truth? I said, well, I didn't lie. I didn't say I was not from Alabama. But anyway, as I got older and went to college and began my career in Detroit, Michigan, who actually gave me my first professional job was the Boy Scouts of America. And I ended up being an explorer. And when I began to speak in the high schools, I was explorer executive. And then I will also mention I'm from Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And then people say, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I said, oh, wow. I don't have to be ashamed anymore. And it is because of Dr. King. He motivated me. He inspired me. I just got back, my wife and I, from the state of Israel. And we train people. We have an office in Bethlehem, throughout the world, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and all over, Paris, France. So when I go there, in terms of the legacy of Dr. King, they all begin to cry. And they say, Dr. King didn't come here. In many places he did go, but like Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, they started crying. They say, his spirit is here. You with us. So that's what Dr. King means to me. All over the world, I get the respect, the recognition, and the historicity of the movement that people paid the supreme sacrifice, giving their lives. And I appreciate that.
Absolutely. When we start talking about what our hometowns mean to the fight and the struggle for civil rights, it was in Tuscaloosa where George Wallace, our then governor, stood in the schoolhouse door and declared segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And yet we know that it was because of the activism, not only of Dr. King, but those foot soldiers and those freedom riders. I mean, there were just so many very brave people who really took up the mantle and the fight. And I think that what was most poignant, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, the reason why they called it the Southern Christian Leadership Conference is because they really did invoke Christian ethics and values. And they really made the world see that you can't go to church on a Sunday and talk about God's children and then enslave God's children or make God's children feel inferior to one another. And so can you talk a little bit about why SCLC was formed? And I know that during the same era, we had what they call the Big Five. So there was SNCC and there was CORE, there was NAACP, and of course, SCLC. And so when I think about why SCLC really was the centerpiece of sort of the Christian call to action, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and that's very interesting that you asked, because when they first organized, it didn't have the word Christian in it. It was the Southern Leadership Conference. And even though they were preachers, they came back and say, hey, we must add the name Christian. But it did not say from the beginning, in its inception, it was Southern Leadership Conference. And they added Christian, which is great. And what's so important too, I just left Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, throughout Israel. And many people don't talk about this, but this is relevant to Dr. King. And the reason I was invited over because my wife was invited by the First Lady of Israel to dedicate a forest after Mrs. King, Coretta Scott King. And I participated on the dedication of another platform for Round the Forest in the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So we just got back 2 or 3 months ago, just before Hamas did what they did. But this is my point. The Orthodox Jews, and I love everybody, but the Orthodox Jews was fighting the Knesset and the leadership there, without calling any names, about the name Jesus Christ. And we talking about Christian, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. My wife was to give a speech because it was a tour of women in the Bible.
Very good.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu was supposed to introduce her. Very interesting. We were on our way to the Knesset, their parliament. And we got a call, say, don't come. It might be violence because you all are the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The Orthodox Jews was trying to bring about legislation and demanding that through the leadership of the Knesset, that anyone, in passing a law, anyone who mentioned the name Jesus Christ will be sentenced for 3 years in prison. Why am I telling you that? I'm saying that because we cannot take the name of Christian very lightly. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And people will kill you not wanting to receive and accept Christ himself. And it's a matter of your understanding that you have to be totally committed the way I am. I'm willing to die to represent Christ in the name of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So I'll stop right there. But that's why it's so important that the leadership of Dr. Lowry and Dr. King and Reverend Abernathy saw the importance of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference rather than the Southern Leadership Conference.
Very good. I know that Dr. King was the first president, and then of course came Reverend Abernathy was the second one, and then of course Joseph Lowry and his lovely wife really led us into the 21st century. What does it mean to you and your wife to now be taking up that mantle of being the president, CEO, and the real face of SCLC in modern time?
It means a lot. Dr. Joseph Lowry was my mentor. And one of the reasons that I'm here today is because of Dr. Lowry and Mrs. Lowry. We were very close. Matter of fact, he also married my daughter along with my Tuscaloosa pastor, Reverend Smith Moore. The two of them were together. My daughter told Reverend Moore, I got to help Dr. Lowry. Because Dr. Lowry gave our children so much attention. You come by the house and, that type of leadership, you don't have it anymore. But I try to do the best I can.
Mrs. Lowry really
Mrs. Lowry.
The movement.
Oh, Mrs. Lowry. That's why my wife has the example now. She'll ask me a question when she runs into a particular problem or obstacle or whatever. She said, Charles, what should I do? I said, think about, I'm going to ask you the question, what would Mrs. Lowry do? Yes. She said, I got it. What would Mrs. Lowry do? Because she was a firm leader in her own right. And we appreciate that. But let me just close in saying that being in SCLC and knowing that you not only have the tradition of prejudice, racism, discrimination from a system, but it's from within as well. Dr. King called heck, I won't say the other word. He called it, and I know all about this. He called it. There were people telling him that you can't do this, Doc, or you shouldn't march, and you're stirring up trouble. One pastor in Chicago changed his entrance to his church, entrance to his church from the front door to the side door, because they changed the street name to Martin Luther King Boulevard. Can you imagine? He was kicked out of the National Convention. He was kicked out.
I can believe it. I can believe it. In the fight in Congress to make Martin Luther King's birthday a federal holiday, that was led by Congressman Conyers, the late great John Conyers. But as the story is told and the truth is told, Jesse Helms held that up in the Senate,
right,
year after year after year, and it was through the persistence of Congressman Conyers and the Congressional Black Caucus, and of course, the dynamic leadership of SCLC and the other African-American organizations that really brought this to bear. And of course, we all know that happy birthday to you. Stevie Wonder coming up with a song that was all about his birthday made that a reality. But
very impactful.
Absolutely, very impactful. So what I was going to ask you is, in your own personal life, because you also are such a trailblazer, sir. You not only sat on the city council, one of the first Blacks to be elected to Tuscaloosa City Council. You were also a state senator. I mean, when I think about the history of what SCLC did, not only in bringing about better civil rights and human rights, but the fight for voting rights was very much in that. I know that I couldn't be where I am today, and I know you would agree that you couldn't have done some of the wonderful things that you did without us having the Voting Rights Act. And to see it under peril as we speak is devastating. And so as a civil rights leader yourself, who as a teenager during the height of the movement, how has the fight for civil rights and voting rights really evolved? And what do you think our message is to young people with respect to what's going on now?
Well, thank you so much for that question. Growing up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, we were dealing with the water fountains and the integration restrooms and had a new courthouse.
And the University of Alabama integration.
And the University of Alabama, of course. And the University of Alabama. It was very frightening. We were called names, Maxie Thomas, whom you might know.
Yes.
I'm sure you know Maxie. You speaking for them, I understand, real soon.
I am excited.
Yeah. And they're so excited, Congresswoman.
Miss Pruitt, Eva, they all keep me in mind.
Those are the people. Those are my people.
My people.
To go back to your question, Reverend T.Y. Rogers was my role model. It was a Reverend T.Y. Rogers. That man was so firm. And I was not involved in the civil rights movement. People need to hear this story. At first, I was afraid. And someone said, Charles, how could you be afraid? You've never been afraid. But it was some fear in me. But my brother Danny, was at the rally at First African Baptist Church. And the sun had gone down. And my mama had always said, when that sun go down, you better be at home. My brother was not at home. And she said, where is your brother? I said, Mama, I bet he's up at that rally. He ain't got no business. She said, you go get him. I went to get Daddy. I walked in the church and Reverend T.Y. Rogers was in the pulpit. My Lord, could he preach?
Yes.
Then he led a song that said, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. My Lord, that's what got me in the movement. I was right at 17 years of age. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And I'm gonna speak in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in a few days. And they said, what you gonna talk about? And I sung the song to the person that was bringing me up. He said, you got to sing that song because our people have forgotten. And Congresswoman, I got to say this. I was leading a protest in South Georgia about a year ago. And we was going around this courthouse. And the young people were singing songs that I was not familiar with.
Yeah.
It's like they not passing on from generation to generation. The bridge that brought us across. I was so intimidated, but I didn't discipline them. I didn't chastise them. I just said, we got to do a better job.
Of teaching them.
Teaching them.
Sure, yes. And, leading by example. I think that really what Dr. King's legacy is about. I mean, the best way we can actually commemorate Dr. King is that we walk in his legacy. We fulfill his legacy, which that beloved community is not possible unless we treat each other as brothers and sisters, unless we see each other's humanity. Right. And that really was a very big pivotal point, I think. And, I agree with you. The young folks don't know from whence we come. And we have to do a better job of teaching them. And when I think about today's modern day struggles, can you talk a little bit about how SCLC stays so relevant? I mean, we started as a civil rights organization, but it was a civil rights movement that led to a voting rights movement that led to a human rights movement that is still relevant today. And so talk to us a little bit about your current programming and what you are fighting for and the legacy that you've picked up and you've carried on.
Well, thank you so much. I have 2 points. One with the hip hop community. I'm here in Atlanta. So, that's a culture that we cannot overlook. Yeah. We must deal with that. I'll deal with that after I tell you this. We're getting ready to build affordable housing. That's close to my heart. Right around on Auburn Avenue, where my office is, right around Auburn Avenue is devastated. I mean, you have homelessness in Atlanta, Georgia, the mecca of black folks. They walk around without clothes. You know, I had to put a fence in front of our door, which broke my heart. Spending money I shouldn't have to spend because they would come there in the breezeway and use the restroom, and also take off their clothes like they're in their home or have their bedroom. But that is their bedroom for that hour, wherever they are. That's their bedroom. And they would take off their clothes and have a blanket or something over them or their coat over them. And when I tell them to get up, they'll curse me out. They'll have something on their arm like coffee, trying to throw it in my face, my wife's face. But they don't know any better. We have to teach these people. Now, the hip hop community, I work very close with them in trying to educate them. And they are good people, but they feel left out. That's my goal. That's the legacy that I want people to know. Affordable housing, not to mention that I raised $20 million and built a brand new building. People never talk about that. But you got to have an institution. I said, yes. Dr. King brought about these marches and demonstrations. I try to continue, but we need a house of our own. Matter of fact, Dean Carter at Morehouse College said, we're going to put your picture right next to Dr. King. I said, why, Dr. Carter? He said, because you found a home for SCLC. And we are going to have training.
Yeah.
So we're going to train people how to take care of their homes. But we got the backing. We got the money. We're going all over the country on affordable housing. I can't go into details, but the money is there. We are going to establish training to bring folks back to civilized communities and families and quality of life. First, you have to start at home, and that's what we want to create. And have training. A lot of it has to do with mental illness because of drugs, and we understand that.
Absolutely. This is definitely, you're the right person at the right time to lead this organization. I know that during your tenure as a Tuscaloosa City Councilman, you secured funds to develop the first low income, no down payment home ownership program in West Alabama.
That's right.
And and talk to us a little bit about how it's not just political empowerment, it's about economic empowerment. It's about providing, bringing equity when it comes to employment opportunities and workforce development. How does this tie into the work you do at SCLC and our collective fight for racial equity?
Wow, Congresswoman, you get me fired up. I love it. You hitting the topic right on the head. Yes, when I was on the city council, we created affordable housing, and it didn't come from me. Let me give credit to none other than Mr. Willie Dino Ford.
Oh, we love Dino.
Oh, Dino.
Still Mr. Housing.
He's still there. He's still doing his thing. Dino came to me, Congresswoman Sue, and he said, Charles, these folks could own their own home. They just don't have a down payment. And I said, wow, Dino, that's what I want to do. That's how I got into affordable housing, the first in West Alabama. People had money to pay for the mortgage if they had a home, but they didn't have the down payment. So this young lady was working at City Hall. She pulled me in the corner, didn't want nobody to know. She said, I know where you can get $300,000. I said, really? I said, I'm willing to go to D.C. She said, no, it's here in Tuscaloosa. She told me where the money was. I won't go into no detail.
I know, but all about knowing what you got to know that budget, that city.
That's right. Got to know that budget. Anyway, that's how I got started. She led me to the money. So you have to listen to everybody. She was not involved in politics, but she's been around City Hall a long time. And we found that money, and the project is still there. Charles Steele Jr. Estates. And people have their own home. So we feel very good about that. And Judge England was on the city council with me, and he created also a housing development that was a little different from mine, but it was a place where people could rent and feel quality and feel a bit of the human instinct of being an America and a democracy, to feel that they are included. People just want the inclusiveness of that love that we can give them.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, as we are embarking upon another presidential election, the concern that I have is apathy, voter apathy. How do we motivate people to go to the polls and vote? Now, we know that politics controls everything we do, from our school board to our water board to the state house to the White House. All of it has to do with putting people in power who share your values and will do the right thing and help all of us. Right. And so in this modern day era where we see threats to voter suppression, we see it around us. We also are experiencing police brutality and gun violence in our community at record highs. We know that Black maternal mortality crisis is a problem as well. What do you think are the most pressing challenges in your view? And what lessons can we learn from Dr. King and those at SCLC to make progress on these issues?
Dr. King always used Mahalia Jackson, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and it goes on, Sammy Davis Jr., all of the celebrities.
That's why we have to use these hip hop artists.
Hello, Congresswoman. You got me on fire. That's what we have to do. I feel so sad, and I won't call any of their names. I know all of them. I respect them, love them, but they have that culture, and they love God, but they also live in the church. So that's another story. But this is what my point. They don't feel included. I know some of the tops. I had lunch with one of them, and two of them came by my office just a few days ago, and we always communicate because I have the hookup, I have the connection with the hip hop community. We have excluded them some kind of way. They do not feel included to the leadership, including myself, until I really made a special effort to work with them. They don't feel included in terms of the modern day movement, in terms of politics and civil rights. We have to, I start to say, if we don't watch it, it's going to be a new day in the next year. It would not be a new day of oppression and suppression if you include the hip hops. The hip hop community has been left out. And one came to me and he got 10 million followers every day. He said, let me show you how committed I am. He pulled up his shirt, had a tattoo of Dr. King on his right side and Malcolm X on his left side. He said, I'm that committed, but y'all don't include us. This is all I'm saying. In order for this election to be successful, we have to have a special concerns and commitment and be impactful in the inclusion of the hip hop community. I am sold on them. Now, they say a few words every now and then, and they test me out, and they call me OG, the original, whatever it is. We are the originals. But
you are the original progressives.
That's right. That's right. But the point is, I want to work with you, Congresswoman, to try and make a better imprint and an impression upon them to make this upcoming series of elections to save democracy and to save our people. And we can do it if we are inclusive more with the hip hop culture. People my age, and I'm 77, but people from 60, 65 years of age and older, we're just 17% of the population.
Yeah.
Hello? So we have to reach these young folks. 80% of influence is through music.
And when you think about the hip hop culture, they were telling our stories through a different medium. But the point is that they are storytellers.
Yes.
And, if there's anything that was really important was the narrative that the civil rights community, galvanized around and pushed out to America, and to the point that people were stunned when 4 little girls were bombed in the 16th Street Baptist Church, or when peaceful protesters, John Lewis with a backpack, just trying to walk across a bridge, being brutalized. And so I think that you're onto something. We have got to utilize everything in the toolkit, and that includes embracing our young people, especially the hip hop community. They just celebrated a huge anniversary.
Yes.
I know that we in the Congressional Black Caucus gave an award to LL Cool J, and
yes,
because these are powerful influencers in our community, and we need to embrace them and have them use their voice,
yes,
and the way that they talk and the way that they weave these narratives and these stories to tell the story of modern day suppression of vote.
That's right.
Modern day violence that's going on in our communities.
That's right.
And inequities that are going on in our communities. And they can speak the language that so many young voters we need to motivate to go to the polls and vote. So I think that you're really onto something, and I want to help you in whatever way I can with this effort, because our young people can make a difference. We know that Biden wouldn't be president.
That's right. That's right.
Had we not had a huge influx of young people going to the polls and voting. We had counted them out, but they were not out. They came out and voted, and we need to make sure that we give them a reason to go to the polls this time as well.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely.
And you're talking about access to capital.
Yes.
They business people now. Hey, I love it. I mean, they
own clothing, apparel. They taken their,
my Lord.
They're conglomerate owners of
right. And that's what they talk to me about. Why are the people who are running for office not talking about the accessibility to capital so we can be entrepreneurs? Let me just run this by you. And I know I've said a lot, and you have motivated me, so I want to say more, but I'm not. And I thank you for it. In the last year, $84 trillion by venture capitalists was invested in business, large and small. With a T, 84 trillion. Listen to this. Black businesses got only 1/2 of 1%.
A half of 1%? Like 0.5, 0.005. Yeah.
1/2 of 1%. African American women got 0.0% when you break it down. You're talking about the young ladies here in Atlanta who this young man been trying to, Shelby versus Holder.
Oh, yeah. The whole decision around affirmative action in colleges has brought up the fear that we're going to lose ground when it comes to minority-owned businesses.
Right.
We see that the same right-wing extremists are going after Black venture capitalists who specialize in Black women-owned businesses.
That's right. That's right.
And so if we don't keep our eyes open,
right.
what we're seeing right now in Florida with the banning of books.
Right.
Who would have ever thought that almost 60 years after the movement, we're seeing such a regression.
Right.
I think it kind of goes to what Coretta Scott King was saying, that every generation has to fight to hold on to the progress that we've made. Every generation has to.
Right.
Or we'll lose it.
That's right. And we on that road, and we'll still sleep at the wheel to a large degree because we're not paying attention and we're not listening to people like you and myself and others. They say, oh, they just in the business of talking, but we have substance, we have facts, we have proof. Let me, behind me, Mrs. Coretta Scott King gave this to me, presented it to me, I should say, August 16, 2000. Because I was involved with helping her with her family reunion every year. And at the bottom, she presented the portrait of Dr. King. But listen to the bottom. Freedom has always been an expensive thing. It ain't free.
It's not free.
You got to fight for it, and it costs. We need resources. We need money, And I'm going to say this. A young lady called me on the phone from way out west. And I've never met her. but I knew her father. She said, I'm going to do better. Sending a check to SCLC, and it's not going to be your regular check. She said, because I just came into some resources, some money, and I want to help the continuation of SCLC. People don't realize it takes money. Dr. King said in his 6 principles, number 1, information gathering. And the information gathering happens to be just facts. What I just told you about the venture capitalists, they keeping us away from the capital. You know, you're in a capitalistic society, you don't have any capital, you're walking around and you're dead. You're not living. Mm-hmm. You have to have resources. That's why I'm so thankful for the people who back in affordable housing. They went out of their way to raise money and to bring about programs that we can have affordable housing, and it's a done deal. And we're going to build them all over this country. But next, Dr. King said, number 2, education, not going to school carrying your book. You know, you talking about the education of the facts that you found. Yes. What I just quoted to you in the facts that you talked about, what we up against. We have to be stewards of doing a better job and getting them starting in the church. Starting in the church. And you saw what happened to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals out of Arkansas. You know, well, they're trying to take it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where you cannot bring about any complaint or petition to any degree, any individual or organization on racial discrimination in voting, only to the U.S. Attorney General. My Lord, is this Russia or this America?
Absolutely.
Is this China? Is this America?
They wanted to say that and you know what was it was an interpretation of the Voting Rights Act, which came out of Congress, as if we would limit ourselves to only having public action and not a private right of action to sue for voter discrimination.
That's right.
Now, I mean, 90% of the cases come from private citizens who've been giving their stories. In fact, we in Alabama had a major win in that.
Sure did. Congratulations. You sure did. It won't happen no more if they have that way.
I know. That will not happen again.
That's right.
And the fact that Alabama has been forced, the state of Alabama was forced to draw a congressional map that had not one seat, which I currently hold for African Americans, but 2.
That's right.
That's a major win, not just congressional offices. If we use it, we could say that voter dilution in city council races in Jefferson County, I dare say that we have 5 county commissioners, 3 are white and 2 are black, but yet we have an abundance of African American voters that are underrepresented. We have a black sheriff, a black DA, and I think that they're going to go to court and try to sue on the same premise, which I think is a great thing. I want to bring us back as we end to Dr. King's legacy. And, you know, I know today, as Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, is a day of action. What do you want to see people act upon today and every day that will move not only King's legacy and SCLC's legacy, but really help to advance the cause of all Black people?
Well, first of all, you hit it. You said not just a day. Someone called me the other day, hey, well, what is SCLC doing on Dr. King's birthday? I say every day is Dr. King's birthday at SCLC, as long as I'm president, CEO, every day. And it's good to have this one day. I applaud it wholeheartedly. But we need to educate on that day. And churches need to open up. You know, every church in America should, black, white, green, or blue, should open up on that day, not just March. You know, let me just say you. I know we having fun, but let me just say something, Congresswoman, about March. Dr. King, 1966, June of 1966, Dr. King was dealing with fair housing in Chicago. It was hot. It was blistering hot. And he was speaking. He said, let me just tell you the truth. I'm sick and tired of marching for something that should be an automatic given right because I was born as an American in this country. Why should I have to keep marching? And I'm tired of it, but I'm so tired of marching that I'm going to continue until we, I will continue to march, but I'm tired. And that's the way I feel. I'm tired. My grandchild was over at the Human Rights Center here in Atlanta yesterday, Civil Human Rights Museum in Atlanta, and his class went over. He called me about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Granddaddy. I said, yeah. Granddaddy, I want to be like you. I said, what are you talking about? I saw your shoes. They got your shoes in there. Your marching shoes. I want to do that. So what am I saying? The imagery of the historicity, and folks don't want us to know our history.
No.
The transatlantic African slave trade is real. It's true. It happened. And there are people who refuse to accept this and don't want the other generation of the future and generations of today to know the truth.
Absolutely. Well, we could talk all day long, but I know that our time is short. And I know that today, as Martin Luther King's birthday, you got lots of stuff to do. I know that the SCLC in West Alabama has an essay contest that they're going to be doing. Mm-hmm. Got a lot of stuff going on. But I think that no truer words were said than we need to celebrate, commemorate the legacy of King 365 days out of the year. Thank you so much, President Steele, for being here. Thank you for carrying on the legacy. And in closing, I just want to reiterate what you said. I would have never thought that 59, almost 60 years after the Voting Rights Act, after blood was shed in my hometown of Selma on that bridge, that I, as a member, first of all, that I'd be a member of Congress, but okay, a little Black girl from Selma, but that my cause would be the cause for which they fought 60 years ago, that the Voting Rights Act is in peril, that the Supreme Court, has done away with pre-clearance. So states have gone amok. States, have instituted more suppressive voter laws, and we don't have the tools in the toolkit to protect against that. And as you just said, you may be tired of marching. I may be angry and upset that the Senate keeps blocking the John Robert Lewis Voting Rights Act. But what we cannot do is give up.
No.
We cannot give up or give in. No, that is the legacy of Dr. King, that the truth is the light. And we have to keep on marching towards the light, keep on fighting towards the light. And we cannot, what did he say? If you can't run, then walk. And if you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, you have to keep moving forward. I'm going to give you the last word, President Steele.
Well, you're so kind. I spoke, Congresswoman Montgomery, for Emancipation Proclamation Day in Montgomery at Metropolitan United Methodist Church. And what I told them was that I have discovered, I travel all over the world, people really look up to African Americans. They really look up to us as we the freedom that they hope for and look for to be inclusive around the world. But what I'm so dismayed and discouraged about, we going back to Jim Crow, state rights. That's Jim Crow. Many of our people don't understand it. They don't even know it. I was speaking to some students at several Black colleges. Matter of fact, one of the hip hop guys want me to do a tour with all the Black colleges in North Carolina with him. And next month, I think we're going to do it. But the point is, he said, I want to help you to communicate where we are and what the problems are. We have gone back to state rights, which is Jim Crow. And the federal government has a role to play too. Let me just say this. I ended my talk in Montgomery by saying, the Emancipation Proclamation came by through executive order. Do I have to say more? It wasn't ratified. until 2 years later.
But it was a president using his pen, the stroke of the pen,
Congresswoman.
the power of the pen.
Oh, you got me so fired up.
Well, I think that your final word about communicating and educating our youth about the significance. It wasn't, Dr. King wasn't just an orator. I mean, we like to quote him. You see people quoting him, but to really understand him, to really commemorate and celebrate him, we need to educate our youth. We need to educate ourselves. I mean, they didn't just happen upon Selma, Alabama. They were strategists. They were tacticians.
That's right.
And we can learn from their playbook how to deal with modern day discrimination, modern day inequities, modern day violence. We need to understand that those same rules, those same methods can work today.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that our folks know that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I learned a lot by listening to you. You're not afraid. You are courageous. I love that about you. And Congresswoman, let me close with this. I remember hearing you give a speech, and you were saying, we got to do more than just take a photo op, an opportunity to get a picture, and then we don't do nothing.
Right.
You said that, and that stuck with me. We're in a society today, everybody want to take pictures. They want to see themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. But after the picture, what are you going to do?
Yes.
We all have a role to play. And I just want to thank you for being in your position with courage, because it's all about courage.
Well, I often say that if I have courage, it's because my foremothers and forefathers, I not only stand on their shoulders, it's important for me to move and advance their cause, because we are the benefactors of their sacrifice.
Yes.
As you said, the price of freedom is not free. And
right.
It's been bought and paid for by our foremothers and forefathers.
There you go.
And so in conclusion, and I'm really going to wrap up now, I just want to thank you,
yes, ma'am,
President Steele, for your taking up the mantle and keeping it moving forward. And know that as you said, and I hope that our listening audience will if you take nothing else, take this grain of nugget that President Steele gave us. We all have a role to play. So let us not think that this is a problem that only can be solved at the highest levels. Oh, no. Grassroots activism is how things bubble up.
That's right.
It very rarely originates from the halls of Congress. It bubbles up from grassroots activism. So on this Martin Luther King birthday, I hope that all of you will take seriously the day of service, not just make it one day, make it a part of your DNA for every day. And remember, we all have a role to play. I'm Congresswoman Terri Sewell. I want to thank Dr. Steele for being here and leading so ably that organization that Martin Luther King and others started, at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Thank you, sir, for your courage every day in taking up the mantle. And to all of us, happy Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Thank you.